Episode 2.1 Understanding Refurbishment Cost Drivers. Right. So you found a property that needs work. Maybe it's that Victorian terrace in Manchester with the dodgy kitchen extension, or that flat in Bristol where someone thought orange shag carpet was a design statement. You're excited, you're ready to transform it. And then someone asks you, what's this going to cost? And if you're like most people, you probably throw out a number based on not very much really. Maybe what you heard down the pub, or what your mates spent on their place 3 years ago, or what you hope it'll cost because that's all you've got. Here's the thing, and I say this to every single person who comes through my masterclass. Refurbishment budgets aren't magic. They're not numbers you pluck from thin air. There are actual predictable factors that drive costs up or down. And if you understand these cost drivers before you commit to a project, you can avoid that heart-stopping moment where your builder hands you a quote that's double what you expected. So today, we're diving into the 4 big cost drivers that will make or break your refurbishment budget. By the end of this episode, you'll be able to look at any property and understand why it costs what it costs, and more importantly, how to make smart decisions that keep your budget under control. Let's get into it. So, first up, scope. This is the single biggest factor that determines your refurbishment costs, and it's where most people get confused because the word refurbishment can mean wildly different things. Let me give you an example. Last year I worked with 2 different clients, both doing refurbishments on 2-bedroom flats in Birmingham. Similar size properties, similar locations, similar end value. But one spent £18,000 and the other spent £87,000. Why? Because their scopes were completely different. The first client, let's call her Sarah, did what I call a cosmetic refurbishment. New kitchen units, bathroom suite, fresh paint throughout, new flooring. She didn't touch any walls, didn't touch any electrics beyond replacing light fittings, didn't touch the heating system beyond giving it a service. In and out, in 6 weeks, £18,000 all in. The second client, James, did the full refurbishment. He stripped the place back to brick, rewired the entire flat, new central heating, knocked through a wall to create an open-plan living space, new windows, the works. 12 weeks on site, £87,000. Same outcome in terms of the photos on Rightmove? Not really. James's place looks significantly more modern, but the point is, they're both refurbishments, and they're miles apart in cost. So let's break down the 3 levels of scope, because this is crucial. Cosmetic refurbishments. This is your paint, flooring, kitchens, bathrooms. You're not touching structure. You're not touching major services. This might run you anywhere from £8,000 to £25,000 depending on property size and spec level. Quick turnarounds, predictable costs, lowest risk. Structural or major works. Now you're getting into walls coming down, stills going in, rewires, replumbing, possibly a new heating system. Maybe you're dealing with damp issues or roof repairs. You're looking at £30,000 to £80,000 plus on a typical house. Longer timescales, more complexity, more things that can go wrong. Full refurbishment, strip bulk to brick, potentially reconfigure the entire layout, new everything. Or you're doing extensions, loft conversions, basements. Now we're talking £60,000 to £150,000 plus, depending on size and location. And in London, add another 30 to 50% to those figures. Here's what I tell my students. The scope you choose isn't about right or wrong. It's about matching your budget and timeline to the property's needs and your end goal. A cosmetic refurb on a property that desperately needs rewiring is just postponing problems. But a full strip out on a property that only needs decoration is burning money. Right. You know location matters for property value, but it also massively matters for refurbishment cost, and not always in the way you'd expect. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, London and the Southeast versus the rest of the UK. I've got a student who did a full house refurb in Newcastle, 4-bed terrace, rewire, replumb, new kitchen and bathrooms, all the trades. Total cost £58,000. Another student did an almost identical scope on a similar house in Wandsworth. His cost, £92,000. That's nearly 60% more for the same work. Why? Labor rates. A decent builder in the northeast might charge £180 to £220 a day. That same skill level in London, you're looking at £250 to £350 a day. Electricians, plumbers, plasterers, at 30 to 50% for London rates. And that's before you factor in materials being more expensive because of transport and storage costs in urban areas.
But here's where it gets interesting. It's not just London versus everywhere else. There are micro variations that can trip you up.
Cambridge and Oxford, nearly as expensive as London because you've got high demand and limited trades. Brighton, also pricey, similar reasons. Meanwhile, you've got parts of Scotland, Wales, the Midlands, the North, where you can get excellent value, but you need to know the local market. I had a client who bought a property in rural Scotland, thinking he'd save a fortune on refurb costs compared to his usual market in Surrey. And yes, his builder's day rate was cheaper. But here's what he didn't factor in. Specialist trades had to travel from Edinburgh or Glasgow. Materials got delivered less frequently, so there were delays. His builder sometimes had to wait an extra week for scaffolding because there were only 2 scaffolding companies serving the whole region. His overall project ended up costing almost the same as it would have in Surrey because of all the inefficiencies and delays. The lesson? Location affects costs, but it's not just about the headline rate. It's about access to trades, materials, and how efficiently the job can run. Alright, this one's about choices, the fun stuff, the finishes, the fixtures, the fittings. And this is where your budget can absolutely spiral if you're not careful. Let me paint you 2 scenarios. Scenario A, you're doing a kitchen in a 2-bed flat. You go to Howden's, pick a mid-range kitchen, let's say £2,500 for the units. Laminate worktop, £400. Basic integrated appliances from Currys, about £1,200. Ceramic wall tiles, £20 per square meter. Total package with fitting, maybe £7,000 to £8,000. Scenario B, same flood, same kitchen space, but now you want something a bit more special. Shaker-style painted kitchen from a specialist supplier, £5,500 for the units. Quartz worktop, £1,800. Bosch or Neff integrated appliances, £2,500. Metro tiles or something designer, £45 per square meter. Now you're at £13,000 to £14,000. Same room, same function, nearly double the cost. And here's the kicker. To 80% of buyers or renters, they might not even notice the difference. But that other 20%, they'll pay a premium for it. In the full masterclass, we dive into the exact calculations for this. But here's the simple rule I give everyone. Specification level should match your end market. If you're doing a budget rental in a student area, Howden's and laminate is fine. Perfect even. If you're doing a high-end family home in a nice part of Bristol or Edinburgh, you need to step up to meet buyer expectations. My students often ask me, how do I know what spec level to choose? And my answer is always, look at the comparables. Go on Rightmove, find 3 properties similar to yours that have sold recently, look at the photos, and match that standard. Don't go bargain basement unless the market accepts it, and don't go luxury unless the market will pay for it. This is one of those areas where having a clear strategy before you start saves you thousands. Right, final cost driver, and this one's the sneaky one that catches people out. Access and complexity. I'm talking about things like, can a lorry actually get to your property to deliver materials? Or is it down a narrow lane where everything has to be hand carried? Is there parking for trades, or will your builder be circling the block for 20 minutes every morning trying to find a spot? Is this a flat on the 3rd floor with no lift? Because every bag of plaster, every sheet of plasterboard, every bit of timber needs to be carried up those stairs. And yes, your builder will charge you extra for that. Are you working on a listed building where you need special permissions and certain materials? That's more time, more specialist trades, more cost. Let me tell you about a project in Bath. Beautiful Georgian townhouse, but it's listed. My client wanted to refurbish the bathrooms. Sounds simple, right? Except the building control officer required lime plaster instead of modern plaster. The electrician had to use special surface-mounted wiring in certain areas to avoid damaging historic fabric. Every tiny change needed approval. What should have been a £12,000 bathroom refurb ended up at £19,000. Or here's another one. Terraced house in London, no rear access. Everything, and I mean everything, had to come through the house. Skip out front, all the rubble had to be carried through in buckets. New kitchen delivered through the front room. The builders added 15% to their quote just for the hassle factors.
Now, I'm not saying avoid these properties. Some of my most successful students have made great money on tricky properties because other people are scared of them. But you must factor in these complexity costs up front. Walk the property with your builder before you get quotes. Ask explicitly, what's going to make this job harder or slower? They'll tell you, and then make sure that's priced in.
Okay, let's bring this together with some practical steps you can take right now.
First, when you're evaluating a property, write down your scope level. Cosmetic, structural, or full refurb. Be specific. Don't just say it needs work. Say it needs a rewire, new heating, and cosmetic updates. That clarity will help you budget accurately.
Second, research local rates for your area. Don't assume national averages apply. Join local property networking groups on Facebook. Ask what people are paying for trades. Ring a few builders and get ballpark day rates. This intelligence is gold. Third, match your specification level to your end market. Go look at properties. Take photos. Build a specification library so you know what mid-range or high-end actually looks like in your target area.
And fourth, always walk the property thinking about access and complexity. Is there anything here that's going to slow the job down or add costs? Write it down, discuss it with your builder, get it priced.
If you do these 4 things, you'll avoid 90% of the budget disasters I see people walk into. In the course, there's a cost driver checklist that walks you through all of this in detail. It's basically a printable worksheet you can take to property viewings. Really handy tool. Right, so that's your foundation for understanding what actually drives refurbishment costs. Scope, location, specification, and complexity. These 4 factors will determine whether your project comes in at £15,000 or £150,000.
In the next episode, we're rolling up our sleeves and actually building a budget from scratch. The proper way, line by line, so you know exactly where every pound is going. Because trust me, I reckon about 50 grand is not a budget. But we'll get you sorted.
If you're enjoying these episodes, I'd love it if you could leave a rating or review. It really helps other property investors find the show. And if you want to go deeper into all of this stuff, the full From Rec to Remarkable Masterclass has templates, worksheets, real examples, the lot. You can find that over on my website. Alright, I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for listening.